Hey everyone, welcome to this event. We're going to get started super shortly. We'll just wait for everyone to connect, to get their tech sorted. You won't be able to talk, or we won't be able to see you, but you'll be able to hear us. So we'll just wait a couple minutes and then we'll get started. Welcome to Marketing After COVID, how to kickstart your customer connection. We're going to have a panel event today with our moderator, Chris, and our fellow panelists, Kristin, Mike, and Arielle. And we'll get started super shortly. We'll just wait for people to join, get connected. You'll only be able to hear and see us. We won't be able to hear and see you, but you will be able to participate through the Q&A and the chat function. So if you can see a message already in the chat, just pop into there where you're streaming from all over the world. We like to see who we have watching today. So I can see that we have someone from Singapore. Hello there. So if you just joined, just pop into the chat where you are in the world. We'd like to see who we have here today. This session is recorded, so you will receive that within 7 days after today. So I'll just give it one more minute and then I will get started. My name is Cleo. I'm from Sydney General Assembly, and I'll just be introing General Assembly and then passing it over to our panelists. If you just joined us, just pop into the chat where you're streaming from. We'd love to see where you are in the world. Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's good to see where everyone is in the world in the chat. And also just to note, if you want to see, make sure everyone sees your comment, please have all panelists and attendees selected in the to section. So you'll see at the moment, a lot of you have all panelists, but make sure all panelists and attendees is selected. Alrighty, I'm going to get started. So welcome everyone to this event, Marketing After COVID, how to kickstart your customer connections. My name is Cleo. I'm from the Sydney General Assembly team, and I'm just going to take you through a little introduction of how you can participate today. So for those of you who have been to one of our events before, welcome back. And if this is your first time at one of our General Assembly events, welcome. Just a little bit about General Assembly. We're a tech education company that specialises in in-demand skills in tech. So whether that be data science, software engineering, digital marketing, product management, and we also host these free events that are all things related to the industry. So how everyone can participate today. So a lot of you have already used the chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen. So this is where you can pop in any comments to your fellow attendees, or if you have any tech issues or anything GA related, I'll be able to answer your questions there. If you have any questions for our panelists, please pop them in the Q&A function. You'll see it at the bottom of your screen. This is so none of your questions get lost, and our panelists will get to these as soon as they can. If you want to see what other events are coming up, head to our website there. It's General Assembly /events. And if you have any event ideas or suggestions, or you want to be a speaker at our next event, please do email us at sydney@ga.co. And last but not least, we do have a feedback survey, which I will pop that link in later on in tonight's session. But if you could fill that out for us, that would be really appreciated. So now without further ado, I'll pass it over to Chris. Thanks, guys.
Here tonight. Thank you for joining us. So we'll start with some basic introductions. So to start with, my name is Melotti. I'm from Melotti Media, and I look after everything word related, and that is with copywriting and message marketing. And I'll pass you over to Arielle, and in turn.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, my name is Arielle. I am the founder and executive producer of Giraffes. We are a full service video production, animation, and podcast studio here in Sydney.
Thank you, Arielle. My name's Kristin Hancock. I'm from Swatch. We're a branding and design agency. We do branding, brand refreshes, visual communications, digital designs, and we also do product and packaging.
Thanks, Kristin. I'm Mike Sandys, Managing Director of Oddball Marketing. We're a action-orientated marketing agency. We do SEO, AdWords, social media management, advertising, and email marketing.
Fantastic, thanks everyone. So we obviously cover the whole gamut of marketing at the moment. So tonight, as you would have seen from the program, what you should expect is we're going to be talking about right now what's happening in the post-COVID era and how you can use marketing, some useful tips on how you can use marketing to help your business thrive and grow in this period. So the first thing we're going to start with is the current business landscape. So I'll open it up to everyone. So right now we've got, obviously, for our Australian viewers, we're starting to get out of the COVID lockdown right now. And there's a lot of different things changing. You can see there's a lot of different trends going on in the world. And so we're seeing a really relaxation of restrictions. People are starting to return to work and there's a lot of government support packages, etc. So does anyone want to have a comment on the current business landscape and what's happening? Do you want to start, Arielle?
Yeah, well, actually, what we've seen is that over 75% of brands have either paused their advertising or stopped it altogether, which is really unfortunate because this is a really good time to be spreading brand awareness for your brand.
Absolutely. I think people initially, as we've seen the restrictions ease, I think there's been this initial relief that's coming through for everybody, but now there's an uncertainty. I mean, like for Australia particularly, it's been a long time since Australia's experienced difficult market conditions.
Yeah.
So what we've seen is that there's now this extreme need and activity going on behind the scenes as to what's next, because there really was a long pause, quite a long pause during COVID.
And I think that the interesting thing about it is just how quickly we're seeing things unlock.
Yeah.
We're sort of always sort of getting into this position that we, put our businesses on hold or slow down and kind of bunker down and hope that we can kind of ride it out depending on how long it would be. And we thought, okay, well, everything we've been told is it's going to be months and months and months to sort of hold on for. And yet all of a sudden, we're kind of unlocking.
And people are scrambling.
That's exactly it. It's like, how do we get going? What do we do now? The opportunities are out there. So what can we do to kind of get ourselves moving again?
And so that's what we're doing this panel for tonight, is to give some people direction and share our insights on this sort of era. So I want to discuss the new norm or the likely trends right now. And so we've got customers and competitors and marketing changing. So what do people think about the customer change right now? Does anyone want to have a comment on?
Look, I think even though it was a lot briefer than what we all expected, there's a lot of cost pressure for customers and they've experienced massive change. And I think whoever you're marketing to, whoever you're talking to, whether you're a product or a service, you've got to put yourself in your customer's shoes because they've experienced change in their business. They're going to have their boss's boss telling them that they've got to rethink things. So from a customer's perspective, I think you've got to experience that, and you've really got to recognise that what happened before and all the programs they may have going to do before and they've mapped it out and informed you about as a supplier just may not be on the agenda anymore.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the customers, they're in a whole different era. A lot of them are home-based at the moment.
Yeah.
And even though things are going back to normal, a lot of companies aren't either fully going back yet, or some are deciding, actually, my customers, they can work at home, my employees. So actually figuring out how do we market to these customers now that they might be a bit more home-based.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that changes how you're going to purchase.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, with the businesses, people working from home is a huge impact on how we go about marketing to them.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, we can't underplay the financial challenges and pressures that are on. While the JobKeeper has been amazing for many businesses, there are still whole industries where people aren't back to work yet. So they're going to be feeling the pinch on it. So we've just got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be concern as to how long it's going to go for as well. I mean, I think in Australia we've been really lucky that we've had a supportive government, but even the government's talking about, is it going to last until September or is it going to go further? And that puts nervousness over people's spending in their budgets at the moment.
Yeah. And I think also competitors as well. I feel the competitors have either gone two ways. They've gone all out and they've been doing lots of marketing, or they've shrunk and held off. Yeah. And so I find that it now is a really opportune time, and we'll go through in the 7 tips later, but now is an opportune time for businesses to really ramp it up.
And be consistent. I think it's about consistency.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's been so much what's happening, that anxiety that you just brought up. And individuals want to be able to look at those brands that they trust and have a consistent message instead of all this frantic up and down marketing that's been happening.
Because Chris, you'll recall we did a few joint marketing efforts during COVID, and both our businesses kept trying to emphasize to our clients that even though you're in a COVID experience and you're in a different marketing genre, so you're actually not going out to really get people to buy immediately, you're trying to build brand and brand awareness, you need to have that consistency, but don't be knee-jerk. And the number of, I mean, am I the only person that's been sitting here? How much knee-jerk marketing have you seen coming out through social, where it's like, it's either buy now or I've just pivoted really quickly, and they haven't necessarily thought that strategy through. So I really think from a competitive perspective, we've seen a lot of intensity. So the dial's really, turned up. But it's
down.
But it's been it turned down in terms of certainly not strategic. A lot of what we're seeing, and a lot of it's knee-jerk. I'll just drop my price. And we're even seeing that now. I think with a lot of large corporate trying to get people back into retail stores, the old bricks and mortars. How many sales are you seeing coming up now? And that's a really knee-jerk because they're trying to make sure that all their inventories are cleared out so that they can, get cash in the door.
And that brings me to our next point, which is marketing's to evolve. And so what we're finding now is that, buyers are looking for differences and what marketing can do. And so we brainstormed some ideas where there's got to be a freshness and fluidity and clear, concise messaging. As a copywriter, that's something that speaks to me because I find that right now people are looking for marketing like almost cues from your brand and your business saying, this is what's happening, this is what we're going to be doing. And so, does anyone have any ideas about how marketing will shift in terms of right now? Mike, do you want to?
It absolutely has to evolve from what we were doing previously to what we do now. The world's changed, it continues to change. And we're very fortunate to be able to kind of get back to things slowly, but it is happening. So there will be some level of normality that will return. But if we look at, and hopefully it's a good change that we can kind of do with our marketing, is that so many businesses were getting into that sort of quick win, quick results kind of approach, and very few were sort of playing the long game. And hopefully now, as we kind of come out of this, people will start to think, okay, let's get some quick wins, but let's not forget about, hang on, we're going to be around for a long time. As things kind of come through, let's not just focus on the activities and marketing that's going to give us an instant result and then it's kind of gone. It's like, let's build some real marketing assets and stuff that are going to continue to work for us in years to come.
Yeah, I think that those points that you raised, Chris, were the freshness and the fluidity, particularly from a branding perspective. As we entered into COVID-19, you would have been selling into your customer base and they would have been reasonably comfortable. As we're coming out of it, they're now going to be, as we said before, asking a lot of questions. So you've got to be perceived by them that you have moved with the times.
Yes.
So we see that exactly. To us, from a branding perspective, we see this as a fantastic opportunity really to look at your brand, consider refreshing it, but even if it's as simple as actually just introducing some new color or some new font so that people, when they look at it, they think that you've moved, your business has, I think pivoted could be a slightly overused term at the moment, but you've responded. Okay, you've really responded to what the market is and you're not thinking that it's going to be same.
And I do think, mostly when we're looking at video and visual storytelling, it's really about engaging with your clients and connecting. People want connectiveness after all this separation, but they want it to come from the heart, because I feel like I've actually seen some clips of almost every business said the exact same thing. We're here for you. We have this. You could see it. It was just the same messaging. So it is about being there for your client. And it's about showing them that, you are there to trust and be there and give back to the community. But it needs to come from your brand values and who you are as a company and be an honest message. And you need to, think what's out there and how can I make sure I stand out a little bit and I'm not just saying the exact same thing every other company is putting out
I
there.
think you're right. Really finding your own tone.
Yes.
And as you were saying, Mike, make sure that what we're doing is strategic and we're thinking into the longer term rather than just knee-jerk, because you can do a lot of damage to your brand
and
at this point in time.
Now. I mean, I know that I've seen a lot of audiences that are, they don't know what to expect. They're worried about everything, and we as brands need to be very sympathetic to this issue, because rather than knocking their doors down like, oh, COVID's over, we need to be
buy my product.
we need to be thinking about these kind of things and taking a strategic approach. So
the interesting thing actually in that is also, Arielle, what you were mentioning before around the experience, the customer experience, and getting them to have a deeper understanding of your business or how you interact with them. Because where previously with the retail side of things, and you just go in store and that's kind of your experience, and it was, that's where you immersed yourself and really got to know the business and saw what they had to offer. Now it's going into retail at the moment, it's still an awkward experience.
It is,
It's a ghost
restaurants.
Absolutely. So in terms of looking at your marketing and marketing needing to evolve, we need to be able to show so much more of ourselves and put ourselves out there in terms of creating those connections through different marketing channels.
Of course. And this is, I think, unfortunately, we are going to be going into that online world past brick and mortar quicker than we even expected because of COVID. And because of that, you need to be engaging with your customers online. You need to make sure your website's set up and your SEO is set up so you're found, because they're not just walking past your store anymore. And if you sell product, you need to have that video to showing what that product feels like. So if you walked in the store, you get that experience, you feel like you get to see it, touch it, experience it. You can actually do even more with video than you can when you just walk in and see a product. So people really need to take advantage of the fact that people are online and consuming online materials more than ever at the moment.
Absolutely.
So that's great. So let's move on to the 7 marketing tips. So the point of tonight's panel is to give people some really practical advice that we've used ourselves in this post-COVID era, where you can take away and think about your own brand when you're doing these kind of things. So we're going to go through all 7, and then we'll open up to questions and answers after that. So I will start with number 1. We've got revisit and refresh your marketing plan. So my opinion on this is that I would say that most people came up with their 2020 strategy in just late December, and where everything was all hopeful and 2020 and this great number and all that. And then we had, in Australia, we had fires and floods and now COVID. And so my biggest advice and what I've done for my business, and I'll open the floor in a second, but is to go back now and have a look at those kind of strategic plans that you had in place and see what's relevant right now, what's not quite relevant, and also what's been happening. I mean, Arielle, do you want to weigh in on marketing plans and how you're adapting them at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, pre the new year, we all had that buzz of it's going to be a great year.
New millennium.
So much was going to happen. Had all this positive approach.
Right?
And unfortunately, that's not what ended up happening. And now that we've just gone through the tumble of life in the last few months, we really need to relook at that marketing plan and make sure we're being sensitive and considerate of our customers and make sure we're really looking at that. I do think now they actually want that optimism again. We want that hope. We want to be hopeful. We want to have optimism of the future. We want to have that consistency we were talking about, because things have been so up and down. And I think when we look at that marketing plan, I think consistency is going to be key.
The positivity.
Positivity
is a huge, we've all been through so much COVID, so much negativity and all that. And like we've been talking about the phrase reclaim 2020, and the new norm and embracing the new norm, all those kind of things we need. I think, Arielle, you're right, is that maybe we don't dwell on the negativity anymore. And in our marketing messages, we need to be positive and embracing this new era. I mean, Kristin, do you want to?
Look, I mean, for us at Swatch, we've had been lucky enough to have some really excellent long-term clients where we built up very close relationships with them. The challenge that we've now experienced through COVID is that you can't engage face-to-face with them. You can get on the phone to them, etc., but you really have to find and pivot. Oh, I've used that word. You've really got to reassess.
We've had to do a lot of pivoting.
You know,
Pivot is a word, yeah.
you've got to reassess how you're going to engage with that client base, because we're not the only business that's structured like that. I think so. Our emphasis has moved much more digital, so we've increased our presence. But in being a branding agency, we've also taken on board. We've given ourselves a bit of a colour refresh. So we've actually looked at our brand and then we've given it, not necessarily, what we didn't want to do was change our own brand or advise our customers to change their brand immediately, but really to refresh it and add to their colour palette and use colours that are really trending at the moment. Things like the neon colours are excellent for digital and capturing attention. And then we're also looking at our fonts, trying to move away from some of the
Korea,
Roboto. But using different fonts that are really clear, but differentiate our business and also to our customers' businesses when they're on a digital platform. So that's been something for us, and really getting beneath what is it that are the values of our brand, and making sure that we've got that authenticity coming through. Because we'll talk about a little bit more about informing customers, etc. But I think that you've got to get across that everybody's been through quite a challenging experience, and it's okay to be authentic about that and explain where your business is.
People are relating to that message.
They really are. What they won't relate to is you trying to put out a falsehood that everything's rosy and I'm fine and it's just the way it was before. People won't relate to that.
That was an interesting one, wasn't it? I suppose during COVID is that the amount of support and awareness and appreciation that people had. Everyone got it.
It was the empathy, wasn't it? It really was empathy
between business and
empathetic is so important. And we've actually seen that with video. We've started doing so much more personal video because everyone's at home. So internal communications, leaders speaking directly to their employees, virtual reality events we've been doing. There's been so many innovative ways that people have had that connectivity and been able to keep that empathy. And with you, of course, because, with marketing strategy, that would be huge for online.
Well, the nice thing is in using the different marketing assets and channels that you guys do is that we can then build that level of trust with customers and really, whereas previously we didn't worry about that so much, or many of our clients would kind of go, no, we just need to kind of broadcast our message. We don't have to worry because you come in store, we have a conversation, we get to meet and greet everyone. The trust is built up at that point. It's not so much done earlier. Whereas now it's like, we don't get that chance. You don't get to create that kind of connection and face to face, a little bit more now than we did, a month ago. But there's still really that lacking element where the more we can push that into our marketing and start building trust early in that process, the more likely we're going to have a customer later on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think the key takeaway for this point is making sure that you're going back and looking at your plan, because right now I find that all businesses need direction. Right? Like not just your customers, but businesses, if you're winging it through this period, I think that's when you're going to really struggle. And so I think that the best sort of strategy for this point is go back, look at your campaigns and see what you plan to do and see what needs to be, adapted at the moment, what needs to be revisited, because I feel like there's a risk for businesses to go, it's okay. No one knows what they're doing right now, so we'll just go with it. And that is a big risk, because if you're not planning ahead and looking even over the next 6 months to a year and predicting that COVID, at least the era might last for longer than we predict. And so just making sure that you're keeping your plans up to date and your team well informed about all these things.
Also, what we haven't really covered is unfortunately marketing seems to get cut first with the recession. And actually, as marketing individuals, it's up to us to make sure our marketing plan is in place. If you're at a larger corporation, that you're saying, no, we are important and this is what we need to get out there, and it's going to be essential to our brand to put out this content to make sure we're staying relevant and having that consistency and making sure that you get to keep your budget and your stock within your company.
I think the big thing we're sort of encouraging all of our clients, or certainly working with them, is doing that refresh. The marketing plan, we looked at it 2 months ago, and we clearly have to
only
change
2 months
it. Now it's like, well, so quickly we're having to rechange it again. But that's awesome. It's a great opportunity. So when we sort of look at our clients and refocusing, it's looking at, okay, what is the audience? Is it still the same audience it was 3-4 months ago? A lot of businesses we've worked with have had to pivot and do that. Yeah, so that word again.
So that didn't work.
Yeah. But they've had to look at other audiences to sort of keep business going. And so now, do they continue to go with those new customers that they've been going after, or do they go, well, actually, no, let's just go back to what we were doing before? Their services have obviously evolved and stuff as well, so that changes things. But if we look at it from a marketing plan, look at your audience, look at the goals and what's achievable now, the next, at least certainly to the end of the year. I'd be looking at the messaging side of things and saying, well, how is your message evolving? And most importantly is looking at the channels that we use. And Kristin, you mentioned it before, is that, really that shift towards digital as a sort of digital first and get that kind of working. And then kind of continue to add in all the other channels along the way.
Yeah, and look, I see this as an opportunity as well. There's going to be a lot of opportunities that come out of this, but particularly where you're talking about the messaging, I think that you've now got a real opportunity to spend and invest a little bit more time on the nurture aspect of capturing a customer, because there isn't necessarily going to be that face-to-face contact. People are going to effectively review your brand and your business through digital media before they even come into contact with you. And it's going to be happening behind the scenes. We already know that, it's around about 8 contact points before they even pick up the phone to you historically. Imagine how many contact points we're going to hit now. And so that investing time to nurture a customer into your brand and into your business, I think will be time well spent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the message, make sure you're checking your marketing plan. So number 2 is keeping your audience informed. Now, I mean, as a copywriter myself, this is one that I am very involved in, and it's everything. Like I'm working on a lot of brands at the moment that are cafes. I mean, even glass repair companies. And the biggest thing I'm telling them as a copywriter and a message marketer is making sure that you're keeping your audience informed, because people are looking to brands. And it's not like not like you're the only brand, but they look to brands to take a bit more of a proactive approach. And so with some of these, like restaurants, for example, I've been saying, put emails together and social media comms and all these kind of things in your wording where it says, we're reopening, these are the steps we're taking. Here's what we're doing differently to protect your safety and hygiene. But people are, like, I know that Australians, we can't wait to kick the door down at our cafe, right?
I must get my coffee.
I went to my cafe recently and there was like a line of people going, let me in caffeine, right? But I think that brands need to be mindful that people are still a little bit nervous, and so now's the time to be proactive and say, this is what we're doing. This is why your safety it matters to us. And like we talked about before, genuine, not like, we're washing our hands. It's like, what are you actually doing and how are you showing this to people? Someone to weigh in with communication to customers.
Yeah, look, I definitely think, as you say, Chris, I think it's about actually telling people what you're doing, telling your customers what you're doing, but it's being authentic.
Yes, big time.
Yeah, and you've got more freedom now in that authenticity. I mean, I think pre-COVID, everybody was like, no, we've got to stay within our narrow bounds. I think you've now got more of an opportunity to talk about what it is that your brand stands for. So as long as it's authentic and that you are backing it up with action. As well, I think one of the things that we did see a lot during COVID that I personally found after a while really switched off people because of the amount of noise coming through was when brands kept repeating the same level of government advice, and they would give you an A4 list of exactly what the government put out 3 weeks ago, and now you've seen it 500 times.
Especially 3 weeks later.
Exactly. So I think you've got to remain current, and I think you've got to, if people are seeing from a lot of touch points what the government advice is, then you can simply say we're adhering to the government advice, but these are the other things we're doing.
I like that.
With your messaging, if you look at it, it's always about adding value. So if you see what's going on there,
value. Sorry.
I mean, if you look at what Kristin was talking about, having all of it, just repurposing or resending out the same stuff that everyone else is sending out. So what? You know, you get that from other areas and other sources. That's not really helpful. It's interpreting that and then looking at how can, you know, your audience utilize that. What does it mean for them? And when we going through COVID, there's some great accountants that were sort of looking at what was going on, what are the latest changes, and talk about a time for relevance. You know, I think everyone was leaning on their accountant over the past couple of months. And so the ones that were very proactive, putting out great information, if you found an accountant who wasn't being proactive, not following you up and sort of saying, hey, have you got, you know,
just switched off, didn't you? Absolutely.
I guarantee you wouldn't be hanging around with them, not now. But the ones that you saw kind of constantly adding in this great information and telling you what that means for you and stuff, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate of that. Like I work with a lot of clients that do, like real estate agents, for example, and they get that the interest rate comes out, and you see the agents that just reiterate the same thing, it gets ignored. It's the agents that then say, okay, this is what it means. This is what I'm predicting. Now it is an assumption because they're making their predictions based on their experience. But like you said, Mike, that's very poignant. Is that it's not just saying, here's something I saw that I'm copy pasting to you. It's here's the information and here's how you can use it. And here's why it's relevant to you. That relevancy and value in all of your communications to your customers must be there. It doesn't matter if it's now or before or after this COVID era.
Exactly. Yeah, well, like you said, we're just getting exhausted with getting the same emails over and over again. And I'm okay hearing from a brand if they're telling me how it's uniquely affecting them and how it affects me getting their service. That is a value add to me. Yeah. And then if I find out that they're doing something because they care about me as a client and they want to talk to me about it uniquely, well, then that's working as well. But as soon as it's that general approach, it just completely loses me. And I think there's been a few times I've unsubscribed to, you know, certain email lists that before I was really happy to get. But it's been so much COVID, update. And now I want to start seeing, how are you innovating? Yeah. How are you pivoting?
Okay, 1, 2, 3,
where are we going? What are you going to do? You've found these new clients. You've gone online. Are we staying online? Are we going back? I want to hear from you. I want to hear from the brand. I want to know what you're doing and how it's going to affect our relationship. So again, I think it's all bringing it back to humanizing it and having the empathy around, you know, what your clients are feeling or thinking towards your particular service or product and making sure it's a unique message for them.
And I think for marketing agencies, which there will be a lot of people here that are part of marketing agencies or marketing teams, that's another good point is our clients are actually businesses themselves. And so we also need to take that lead as well, like and guiding our business partners to say, this is how you can reach your customers at the end point. And these are the kind of things that you need to be telling them. So it's not just if you're a brand that speaks directly to a big audience, it could be that you're speaking to you know, a type of a chain or a franchise or a business that needs to then communicate onwards, and they are looking for your guidance as well on how we communicate to their end customers. So it's all important, but communication is absolutely key right now. People are looking for you to give guidance. This is how we're going to do things.
I mean, that's definitely what you were doing the whole time, is putting out there. How do you, what messaging are you putting out there right now? And I know for video production, of course, all our live productions had to be canceled because of COVID restrictions. So it's important to guide my business customers on how else can we get your messaging out there? What else can we do to make sure you're relating and connecting with your audience, which ended up being a lot of animation and podcasts. But now things are changing. It's going back and we can do live production, and it's just keeping them informed. But again, it's that very unique messaging of how can we help you get your message out there?
Yeah. Did you want to pick up on any of the questions?
Does anyone have any questions? How can we become better at listening to customers? That's a really, really good one. So for me personally, I am very actively engaged. I mean, I'm a slightly smaller agency, so for me, I'm actively engaged in a lot of my customer interaction, and so I'm always on the phone asking, and I've always got my ear to the ground on social media in terms of really listening to people. I have no hesitation in asking, and because I teach a lot of classes, and I teach a lot of classes at GA, and that's also a really good listening post for me. But I find that like social media is a really good way to listen. There's also now on LinkedIn, if anyone's seen, there's a poll function.
Yeah.
And that's a really good function to sort of ask people and say, how can you listen, what do people want to know right now? How can we be of better service to you? Does anyone want to?
Well, I mean,
Wayne?
honestly, this is a better time than ever to be able to listen to your customers, because if your marketing's online, there's data.
Yeah.
You can check the data now. You can see what they're opening, how far they're watching a video, which podcasts they're opening, which pages they're visiting. There's so much analytics now that we can follow, that we can really pinpoint, what are our customers looking at and what's working, and making sure that we're following up, it is listening to them by looking at the data.
Let me jump in before you do.
They're all wearing the
I love it.
The only thing I would just add to this is I think you've got two types of listening to your customers. You've got the direct, where you're actually having the conversations with your customers and you should be asking for the feedback. And then there's even right down to the polls, I would say, is direct customer feedback, where you're asking pointed questions, you're understanding how their businesses are going, and you're understanding how you can add value in this time. The other is the indirect, which is the data. So you can see how people are responding to your digital platforms, to your social media. You can capture that data and you can use it to inform. And I think that really leads well.
Nice segue, well done. Yeah. I mean, that's the area that we particularly love. And when we look at it from an action aspect, within the digital space, you're right, Arielle, that you can track so much stuff now. And previously, we sort of look at marketing, you'd sort of do it. The client would sort of go, oh yeah, you guys are doing stuff, that's great. I can see some stuff happening over there, that's kind of cool. Now it's like, no, hang on. Tell me what's going on. Every bit of content that I post or every ad that we do, what's the result out of that? One, what's my return on investment? Is it doing something? Yeah, it's like, it's everyone's focus right now on every dollar and saying, is it getting a return for me?
Yeah.
But then also looking at, well, what's the level of engagement? What's the audience that we're kind of getting out there? Or who we're getting out there to, and do they care about what we're doing?
Yeah.
Or do we need to sort of start evolving our message, evolve what we do on, particularly in social media? Is this stuff really resonating with our audience?
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point. Is I feel like marketers now is more important than ever, is not listening to the metrics. Like we've been drilling it into marketers for years about looking at metrics and seeing what's working, what's not, and not knee-jerk reactions, but just looking at the data over time and saying, this isn't working, and having the courage to say, okay, our clients are clearly, they're unsubscribing, they're not listening, like they're not engaging in our message. And a lot of brands either ignore it or they do the knee jerk. And it's like, how do we listen to that medium?
Yeah,
points?
absolutely.
And so marketers must be watching data. Must.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
important.
And there's a lot of, you've got to recognize there's a lot of noise out there.
Oh, yes.
So don't be surprised if you do get some unsubscribes, etc.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
That's just going to be natural. But I think as long as you have a very clear plan and a clear strategy and you're executing that, I think you'll do well.
And you're sticking to your brand identity.
Yeah.
Don't get lost in everything happening right now and just say, I need to, follow this train and be seen as this. You still need to be your brand through it.
Yeah.
And you can't lose that brand identity while getting this new marketing out there.
We'll take one more question. Is there one we can grab? What are the most efficient digital marketing platforms to get the greatest amount of conversion for a service-based SME? We're going through a point in omnichannel. I think we'll address that one. So hold that one. Is there any other question? Otherwise, we'll move.
There was.
There was one that was how do we acknowledge events and things that are happening during COVID. Like Kristin said before, my opinion is always like you said, be genuine about it. Like don't say nothing's happening.
Yeah, I think authenticity is key. You really have to be genuine about it, your brand, and you really have to recognise that how you express your response to things that are happening in the political environment or within the COVID environment has to reflect your brand.
Yeah.
So, do not, as we constantly be saying, knee-jerk is wrong.
Yeah.
What you've really got to do is think through how you're going to respond and be genuine and authentic.
And a question, sorry, but people are probably thinking, why isn't knee-jerk correct?
Yeah.
Do you want to, because I think that'll come up, is why are we so adamant against the knee-jerk reaction?
Do you want to start? Or?
I'll let you take that one.
I know people will ask.
Yeah, because knee-jerk usually is a response to an immediate situation that doesn't necessarily propagate itself forward. So in simple terms, if you respond, 9 times out of 10, you're going to make the wrong decision. You're going to do more damage to your brand because you're actually going to confuse the customer, and you're going to step away from all the work that you've done in the past and what you're trying to do to go forward.
I mean, if you just think about that in terms of the COVID side of things, when COVID first started to show up, and we started all the businesses and we're all looking at how we react to it. And, straight away I was getting emails from every possible business that I'd had contact with over the last 5 years. Yeah. Doesn't matter whether I'd said anything to them for years. And all of a sudden I've got this email going, I think we used you at once upon a time. And it's all about what they're doing about COVID, which I don't really care about that business, because I wasn't using them. Wasn't going to be using them anytime soon. So that really wasn't helpful. And so many businesses jumped on the same bandwagon, doing the same thing. And you're like, all right, you know what? Delete, unsubscribe.
Yeah, that's the danger.
And without that, so there'd been no consistency leading up. There was no consistency through, because it was just drop in, drop out. Yeah. And then if you do knee jerk again and you've got no consistency, without consistency, you do not have trust for your brand.
Exactly.
Then people cannot engage with your brand because they don't trust it.
Because they don't recognize it anymore.
Yeah,
It's exactly what we're talking about. That consistency is so important. You need to trust and know who that brand is, their identity. And you lose that with these knee-jerk reactions that come out of nowhere without any thought.
Yeah. Great. All right, we'll move on. So now point number three is assess the viability of your COVID adaptations. So a lot of businesses during this period, we all adapted to COVID. And so what we were looking at was, now that and Australia in particular, we're getting out of these restriction phase, are we checking what our adaptations, I'm not going to say the word, are we checking what's working and what isn't? So for example, for me, I did a lot on education. And education was where I was able to adapt and move my business into a bit more. And now it's that time where I need to say, okay, how can I continue my education in this post-COVID era? Yeah. And this is something that a lot of businesses, some adaptations are going to be like boons for company, because a company will say, this was the best thing that we could have happened because it shook us up. Yeah. And then there's going to be others that they pivoted and, oh, damn. Damn. So some businesses would have adapted, and then what would have happened is now they're going, this is not viable to continue because it's not profitable enough or not economic enough. So, so I think now is a really good time to be assessing those changes that we made and seeing, do we capitalize, do we expand, do we contract, do we remove? Does anyone have an opinion?
Yeah, I mean, we were like you, Chris. We adopted two plans when we came into COVID. One was to address immediate need for branding and design, and that was a lot of what we were doing was centered around supporting our clients through Zoom. So how do we make people look professional in Zoom rather than some of the, I'm sitting in my bedroom at home wearing my dressing gown. Yeah. So we were giving them
having a lot
of support, and it was as much about keeping connection with the clients and giving them some simple tools that they could aid in their Zoom experience. The other side, though, is that we were working closely with you, Arielle, in doing more animation work, which we knew would have a longer term benefit for both our business, but also we knew that coming out of this, there'd be a lot stronger emphasis on digital, and doing the animation side would work quite well.
I want to pass to you, Arielle. As you mentioned that you're doing podcasts a bit. That's a really good adaptation. And point is,
Yeah, so look, we are coming out of it. We are coming out of COVID, and we're all very excited about it, but things have changed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses have learned through this time that maybe not everyone has to come into the office. Maybe we don't have to go out to shops for everything we purchase, because people adapted so well. A lot of things did move online, and I think we need to keep that up. And one of the ways to do that is through podcasting. It's such a beautiful way as a business to be able to, because when you listen to a podcast, let's be honest, we all kind of feel like you're in the room, you're kind of mates with the people having the podcast, and you kind of feel like you're engaging, you're having a group atmosphere. And it's such an amazing thing for a business to do, to really grow that brand awareness, that trust, the relatability, the just humanizing the brand in general, and creating that connectivity with your customer. So that is a definite amazing way.
That's how your business did it.
Yeah, we pivoted. Goodness.
It's like the taboo word. It's all right, just go with it.
We did podcasts and animation, and that was a big part of our business, but live production was a huge part of our business. And so when COVID happened, because of regulations, we had to cancel all live production. But that doesn't mean products weren't still getting launched, and all these things that we had planned just go away. We had to figure out, how do we still represent that and reach their clients? And that's how we ended up mainly switching to animation. And really, that's made a lot of clients realize that animation, the sky's the limit, and you can create animation the moment you want to, right? There's not as much regulation, and sometimes as much cost around it dependent. So these are the type of changes I think are going to go well into the new norm that we have, along with live production, just seeing these other avenues that we can go about while still connecting with our customers.
Does anyone have any?
The biggest thing we saw was around content and giving away, and something that we've been doing ourselves is creating phenomenal amounts of content and just giving away constant amounts that, stuff that we've developed and learned over the years and sort of formulated, we just giving away. And saying, whether it's just so that, great if clients want to, or people want to see that and go, great, this is who we want to work with. But at the same time, it's also great for those that it just helps businesses to get through COVID. And now hopefully they'll be able to use some of that content and the stuff that we've posted. And I think if you look at a lot of the brands and businesses that have been quite successful through COVID, or at least positioning themselves to be very successful post-COVID, have been those that have been creating all of this great content and just having it available to kind of music to your ears. You guys are incredibly busy through COVID.
But here's the question for this slide: is that still viable for Oddball going forward?
I think it's something that we've always had it on the, we should do that. But we've just been so busy with client work always happening that it was like, we'll get to it. Yeah, we should put this stuff out there. Whereas this has really changed it. We've got ourselves formulated around doing it for ourselves. And now, as we kind of come out of COVID, it's like, we'll keep doing it, because it's a great way to kind of pay it forward, give out all this information. If businesses use it, that's fantastic. It's what works for us. So hopefully it works for them. And if they then go, hey, we like and we trust what you guys are presenting, what you're talking about. You sound like, you know what you're doing. You're getting good results. Great. We'd love to work with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And there's one question I liked there that said, what platform would you recommend with the adaptations? And I think that's a really good question. I know we're getting onto that. So that what emerging channels are gaining a lot of traction? For me, definitely Google My Business. That's something it went on hiatus a little bit. It went on a bit of a pause during COVID. Google shut it down, or like it paused that. But now, especially the geographical component of it and posting it, and people don't realize that it's actually quite a social platform. And so I post on that every day and get thousands of views for nothing. And so it's something that is now back into full swing. Google is behind it and endorsing it. So the answer to that question for me would be Google My Business is definitely, every business should be there and actively posting on it. Does anyone have anything to contribute?
I think, absolutely. Google My Business is definitely the one that's coming through. But I also think it's, we're a branding agency, so we talk a lot about what's right for your brand. So making sure that if you're a highly visual brand, flicking to a platform like Twitter is not going to help your brand.
Yeah.
Okay, so the conversation stays on the visual platforms.
Yeah.
Versus one where you might be more transactional and more conversation-led, you might then stick to Twitter. But for us, it's about definitely choose the platforms, but be brand-led.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting you mentioned Google My Business, because that's one of our SEO strategies. One of the modules that we go through in an SEO plan is Google My Business and posting, because we see significant impact.
Oh, huge.
You know, that's from a low-hanging fruit opportunity for a lot of businesses. Just getting on there and actually posting through their Google My Business is fantastic.
Yeah. And Mike, are you
Very
putting
important.
unique content back to Google My Business, or is that?
No, not generally. Yeah, we look at what we're already doing and just posting it through Google My Business.
Yeah.
So it just gets out there. And we've seen whenever we do that for businesses, their Google My Business listing gets a large spike in traffic, which, you know, that's awareness for that business. So often when they might otherwise struggle to get reasonably good rankings in Google, the Google My Business listing is one of those shortcuts. Yeah, so we see that. And I guess with that, we see also at the moment the Google Ads and looking at doing Google Ads, volumes are lower than what they were previously. But in terms of results at the moment, Chris, you're seeing it.
Seeing him everywhere.
Everyone's laughing because Kristin redid my brands, and then Oddball did my Google AdWords, and I just can't keep up with the leads coming in. So
it's amazing.
So it is something that people, it showed me that people are really active still. Like I was even during the thick of COVID, there were leads coming in of businesses going, we're doing a whole launch. And I'm like, oh, no one got the memo that this like so it really is poignant to make sure that you're getting out and you're embracing all these channels that are
the whole importance of keeping marketing as the key right now is everyone's eating up content.
100%.
People can't get enough content. There's been such an increase in content. Now, a lot of that, you know, is escapism, but people are going to their favorite brands to find content as well. So if you can take that creative approach, that storytelling approach, even doing some sponsored videos, if you want to do a cooking video with your product and have it somehow relate in, or if you want to do more of a docu-series of how you've helped the community, people are eating up content right now. So if you can create content, if you can start working on that, it will be viewed more than it ever has before, because they're hungry for it.
Yeah.
And I think you got your timing exceedingly. It was just perfect timing. Kristin.
I started in December.
Yeah. But
No,
you
it
really
was
did.
really good.
You really hit the ground with, okay, I'm going to take this time to really look at my brand. And we started off, we were talking about, oh, maybe we'll just refresh some of the color palette. We'll do some slight changes. And we ended up with a, you know, it turned out we ended up with a full brand refresh. And then you're able to hit the market just as we're emerging out of COVID. And then Mike's reading, we've just got this sea of orange on our computer.
Yeah, careful when you go to my website.
Yeah.
You're inspected.
Go to Melotti Media at your
Go to my website. You'll get inspected. I noticed there's a lot of questions coming through for the point 6, which is the omni-channel and content production. So we'll get there. So we'll do number 4, which is rebalance your marketing approach. So for this one, this is where during COVID, brands started to evolve into the nurturing aspect. And we started to look at, okay, let's not go the hard sell. Let's go for the more caring approach, because people were in a vulnerable state, and so were businesses. And that was perfectly fine. Now that we're starting to into that post-COVID era, which is what we're talking about tonight, it's all about rebalancing your marketing approach and your messaging and your tone and your whole way you approach marketing. And so does anyone want to discuss where we're talking now about maybe shifting the balance back to more of a comprehensive marketing approach? Does anyone want to weigh in?
Look, I get that we need to rebalance it, but I actually think we're going to all still be feeling very sensitive.
Very true.
Very, you know, we're all a bit shell-shocked still from this. And I think even when we talk about rebalancing, that's going to be a slow go.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, you know, having that humanity and the empathy as the key to your messaging and brand approach, making sure your brand identity is the foundation of that. is going to be key for a while, because we're not just, even though a lot of us are quite excited, we're still nervous. There's just too much happening in the world. And I think if you move into even rebalancing too quickly, it's going to feel almost knee jerk, because, you know, you can't just say, I'm here for you, I'm here to help you, and then all of a sudden, and all of a sudden you're like, and here's my happy product stuff again, you know? So I actually think, talking about going back to the marketing strategy, there's been too much happening to do this too quickly. It's going to be a very slow ramp up. And I think all the way into 2021, I think it's still going to be a trend. I hate calling it a trend, but it's going to be important that you keep that empathy and the connectivity and that story approach at your base, and not just go back to that hard selling approach.
Agree.
So,
Agree.
definitely.
You don't want to be the hard sell right now, but the point I was making was that just making sure that you're not still stuck in the COVID era. You know, we're in the post-COVID era now. We don't want to be saying, hey guys, we're adapting. It's done. It needs to be, and we talked about it earlier, was the positivity message. You know, embracing that.
And I think that's where we were talking about the subtle introduction of an extra colour or two in your colour palette that is quite happy, quite excited. So some, you know, and we talk back to the neons that we're seeing. So really bringing those out can actually, your message can be still quite long-term and nurturing, but your visual stimulation has changed. Okay, so so we would definitely recommend considering that from a branding perspective. That's where we would probably look at it.
Look, I think, you know, from our point of view, Chris, you're right around now we can move to more action and messages that kind of get people out and can kind of, you can come in store.
You're welcome. Like that's the message. You're welcome to come in store.
Absolutely. So it's now kind of, rather than just talking about, you know, or connecting with them such, and that being the core message, now it's about actually, well, you can get out, you can actually make some purchases and you can get back to some sort of normal life.
And guys, what do we think about I mean, because, you know, there'll be a number of businesses out there that are in a bit of stress at the moment. So they are going to feel like they do need to get custom now. How do we feel we should, you know, they should approach their marketing? Because obviously they're going to have one eye on the strategic going forward, but then they've got this immediate business demand to say, right, no, but I do need a bit of a buy now button. So in terms of messaging, Chris, have you...
Look, I found that, like Arielle was saying, is like, I would say don't be afraid of selling. That would be something I would say, because a lot of brands are going, I don't know if it's the right time or not. And it's not about forcing it down people's throats or anything like that. It's more like being okay to say, okay, we're entering a post-COVID era where our cafe is open. Our real estate business is open. We are launching a brand.
It needs to be the optimism and looking into the future. Definitely. We're completely done with the whole sadness. We want to have that happiness and the optimism for sure.
And so, like, as I said, don't be afraid. Like, I've seen a lot of brands online that they're just waiting. And I'm like, you don't have to be, you don't have to be afraid. Like, you are there to, don't think of it as you're hard selling. Think of it as you're solving problems. And like Arielle was saying, keep that empathy at the core. And it is a lesson that we've learned from COVID, but grow from that. You know, like, you've got your base, and now look at it and say, okay, how can I use that as a message to say, we are open, we are looking, you know, we're looking to the future together with you. And this is what we can do. And it's about spreading your wings a little bit. And there was a good question that just said, how is rebalancing different from refreshing your marketing plan? So they're essentially related, because what we're trying to do is, so your marketing plan was the one that you probably set earlier before COVID, and you set it as a blue sky, it's amazing year, right? That didn't quite get there. And so that point was, we are going back and looking at it and going, how can we adapt now to this? The rebalancing point we're saying is that during COVID, everyone, the savvy marketing professionals, what we looked at is we said, okay, how can we pull back our norm and go, right, what can we do that's more aligned with people's, to be more supportive?
It was more empathetic, more nurturing. We all moved into nurturing mode.
And
as
like
opposed
connecting.
to, and there was a there was a strong direction within our client base and within our business, at least, not to do sell.
Yeah.
So it was
the
like,
same.
so it was build brand awareness, nurture, be empathetic.
Yeah.
But now I think as we're moving out of it, it's okay to say, yes, I do want you to buy my service or my product, but it has to be, it's still in a nurtured.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we're meaning by.
And that's the rebalance.
That's the rebalance.
So
And
you
the
really-
marketing plan is where you're looking at your strategies and the executions, like we want to grow, we want to do this, we want to hire, we want to take a new direction.
This is the plan of how we're rolling it out. That would be the difference.
Yeah,
there.
and I think the key to avoid, look, there were, as I said before, there'll be businesses that are really keen to get the sell now because they need the sell now and they need that buy now button, and that's fine. But just ensure that if you're giving offers, the way that you present it, you don't be seen as a transactional business, because if all you are is oh look, there's 50% off, I'll buy now. That customer will only come back to you when there's 50%.
Yeah, there's a danger there.
There's a real danger there. So even if it's capturing more customer data, if you look at it from their perspective and really talk about the value add of it and the way that you engage with them to offer the service, or, you know, even if it's things like, okay, for our business, it might be, look, come in, we will do a scaled down version of your brand refresh. So we're not going to do a complete brand refresh, but we are going to work on your colors and your fonts for you now to lighten up your brand, because that we know in the future, as you get back on your feet and you evolve, you'll come back for the full refresh.
I think that all the questions that are coming through are into the next two. Okay. So let's get to number 5 and number 6, which is what everyone's asking about. So number 5 is building marketing assets. Now, this is something we touched on with the content production, and content has always been a strong part of marketing, whether it's like above the line, below the line, it's all content based now. And so this is the opportunity right now to be embracing this and building content around it. And that's many different media, right? So you've got
absolutely.
You've got like words, you've got like the video, you've got the branding and all the advertising and all those kind of things. Right now, I feel like it's a huge opportunity. And as Mike said, value. And Mel and I were saying is relevance.
Yes.
The 2 elements, if you take those 2 away, it's always provide value and be relevant to customers.
Yes.
So I want to weigh in on, and we'll take a few questions in this one because I feel that this is one and next one as well. But I want to weigh in.
I can start.
Please.
Well, you guys, this is everything about what you do in terms of the assets. For us, we need solid marketing assets to promote. You know, if we're going to, regardless of whichever marketing channel we use, if we haven't got solid marketing assets, we're kind of wasting our time. So it's really, and the idea of building marketing assets, I believe, for businesses is that you want to have marketing that generates long-term results for you. So just going, and there's so many different channels and stuff that we work with where they work fantastically, but they're a very short-term fix. You know, Google Ads is one of those ones where you go, okay, great, works today, but it costs you money today. And if you stop spending tomorrow, you're going to stop getting results out of it. You know, that's not an asset if you think about it that way. I mean, I look at it more as a sales expense. You're buying lead opportunities. If you can close those leads, brilliant, well done. But that's not a true asset. Whereas when you start looking at things like your brand, video, content, those are assets. Those are things that not just today will they work for you, but they'll be working for you for weeks, months, and years to come. And so it's trying to get people away from, we talked about earlier, everyone doing that sort of quick fix, hey, how do I get business today kind of approach, and saying, well, you've got to do a little bit of that. We all need to get going in business. But at the same time, let's not forget about the long game. And let's make sure we're building some solid assets, the work that we're doing, and invest in that now, because that will pay massive dividends for us over the long term.
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree with all that, Mike. I think I'd overlay onto it that if you go back to the beginning of the conversation where we said that there's going to be a lot of pressure on the customers, and they are going to be looking around, they're going to be, let's be honest, they're going to be reassessing all of their suppliers.
Big time.
So if you come back to market now with the same digital assets, the same brand assets, the same video assets that you went to market with last time, they're going to look at you exactly the way they looked at you pre-COVID. Now that might be reasonably positive, but they're definitely going to talk to a lot of other people. So you've got to have that freshness. You've got to have that fluidity. So you've really got to look at your asset library. Now, The other thing from a branding perspective for us is it's about storytelling.
Yeah.
And the reuse and the multi-use of assets. So investing the time to build on your branding assets, to build your templates, to build your video, to do the podcasts, etc. Although it's a significant investment, you can reuse a lot of those assets. And I'm sure, Arielle, you'll talk to that.
Oh, it just, you know, it's so important because we talked about that knee-jerk reaction, and you can do some quick video. But what are you really getting out of that? Because it's still quite a bit of money. And then can you reuse that asset ever again? So really sitting down and deciding what story are we trying to tell? Where are we trying to take our audience? And then by creating that strategy and putting that concept, when we go out and film or create these animations, we could be thinking of a multi-level approach. We could be looking at creating assets that cover Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, having all the different durations. So actually taking that proper time to strategize your photography, videography, all that is going to make actually a huge cost difference in the end, because you can have those assets for the long term and you can reutilize a lot of the assets and cover a lot of the basis. So it's so important to have that strategy behind the assets you're creating.
Yeah, and I concur. Like, I mean, I'm getting asked a lot from clients is landing pages, website writing, blogging and article is really big right now. And it's just, and I, as a message marketer and a copywriter, I guide people through. And so what I've been trying to do to help them build marketing assets is looking at, because they do the usual, you know, oh, I need this. I need something quick. And I'm like, okay, let's work out your goal. Let's have a chat about what you want to do, who you're trying to communicate with. And then they'll say, oh, we want to talk about how we're advancing this particular program or we're launching this particular product. And I'll say, okay, where's the customer pain point? Where's the value that they're involved in? How are they going to keep coming back to you to ask, you know, and keep reviewing this content? How is it working on Google and your search engine optimization? All these kind of things is where I am helping. And I concur with all of you is that it's not just, hey, let's write a blog because we'll fill some space. It's like, you know, how can we, you know, utilize Chris to help build these kind of things? And that's the feedback I give is making sure that you're using the wording that's you know, evergreen and value adding and relevant and all these kind of elements that we want to make sure, rather than just let's fill some space.
I mean, every time we're doing a video or animation, even podcasts, script is the backbone of this content, because you need to be putting out the right messaging and there has to be a reason you're putting it out there. So taking the time to properly think about how you're putting that together and what you're getting across is just absolutely essential.
And that's
getting the right assets
together. So for everyone, Arielle and I work together on a lot of like scripting and video, and that's just the same. It's like you said, it's just about making sure that we're communicating the right messages and that that we're looking at things in a holistic way, rather than just let's just throw out a script and the best.
And I think for us, from a branding perspective, you know, people should go to whoever their design agency is, and they should look at asking them about the templates they use across social media, or even if it's just to give them guides. Because the one thing that we see so often is that you're trying to get a consistent message across, but the tone that you keep putting these social posts out changes every week. So really just some guidance on how do I keep, this is the tone that I want to project. How do I actually develop that look across all of our
all your assets?
All the assets. So it's that consistency across all the different assets.
And it's using multiple. Now there's a really good question. Do you think an organic Google position for your website or brand in the homepage is more long-term than paid Google ad positions? Okay.
That's definitely a micro. So, I
have we got enough time?
That's it. All right. Where's that soapbox? Absolutely. In terms of the organic side of things, absolutely, it's a better asset. It's once you're there, it takes a long time, a lot of effort to get you to number one, depending on what the keyword is in the competition. But once you're there, you're there. And so it's then a case of maintaining and making sure you're in that top position. Whereas the ads, just because you're there today, doesn't ensure you being there tomorrow. If someone's prepared to outbid you for whatever reason, and there's some big businesses out there that are quite happy to spend some phenomenal amounts of money and don't really think too wisely about how the return's going, they just spend the money. it becomes very difficult. So you could think you're there 1 minute and, hey, you've got this great lead source. Next thing you know, someone's outbid you and you're gone. Whereas from an SEO, when you're there, you're there. And unless somebody works hard to try and get in front of you, that's going to take a lot of work and effort. So, to me, that's a proper asset versus AdWords.
Yeah. And I like to do a balance of both. For me, like I'm an SEO person, naturally being copywriter, but also like making sure that we're doing paid ads with Oddball. But it's also, I find that people trust the organic stuff more. Like when you see an ad, like when you Google local childcare centre and you see the 3 ads, I teach marketing classes at GA, and I often say, quote unquote, that Google Ads is almost like cheating because you get there, right? You get there because you're paying to be there. Whereas the organic leads are there because you have genuinely got a good answer for that search term. And I find that people have gotten onto that. Like people, I always ask my class at GA, I say, all right, show of hands, who clicks the Google ad? And some people do. It obviously does work. But because I have both.
Take away that part of my business.
No, like I do both. Right. And I have lots of clicks through my Google ads, but a lot through the organic stuff as well. And it's this balance. So the answer to the question is that I think you have to have a balance. And I feel like people trust the organic stuff a lot. And so you do have to be, as marketers, we have to be active in both.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the way we tend to recommend working with it is that, and we do this for ourselves as well, like you, Chris, we set it up so that you target a few good keywords from an SEO point of view. And that's great in that they're high volume, very important keywords, but that's very narrowly focused on only a small handful of keywords going after one particular topic. So there's so many other search terms and other keywords very close or, in the same realm that mean the same thing and same thing for your service, but you can't rank for all of them. You can only rank for a couple of them. So it's a case of going, okay, well, that's where we focus our SEO efforts on those ones that are going to get a great return. And then all of these other ones that we want to go after, great, let's use Google Ads to go very targeted at those with really good landing pages. And you can pick up a whole bunch of business that you otherwise wouldn't get because you can't go after every keyword.
No.
And those ones tend to be the lower volume searches that you go after the ads for.
They can be, yeah. Quite often, we would target the larger keywords, larger volumes, because it makes sense. Once you're there, it's worth investing in that asset to get you ranking there. If it's low volume, it's kind of not really worth it. But from an ad point of view, because you're only paying per click, if it's got small volume, it doesn't matter. You can still go after it. And what we often find
if
there
it's
is
got relevance for the business.
Exactly. But we find that those ones often will convert better. So when you're paying per click and you're getting slightly better conversion out of that, it makes it even more valuable to go after.
If you're going to pay for those AdWords, it's so important that that landing page has the correct brand identity, has the video content, has the right messaging. No, honestly though, because if you're going to pay for that, even if you want the success for your clients, you don't want them going to a crap landing page, because then they're going to say, oh, why isn't this converting? Why am I paying for clicks? So it's so important to think of it in a holistic way of all these different assets, because yes, you can get someone there, but if you're not representing yourself correctly and you don't have the proper content on that page, you're not going to convert.
You pay for the click and
you pay for the click and you're not getting the sale.
Actually, you're spot on there. When you look at AdWords, the kind of two key mistakes that most businesses make is, one, targeting the wrong keywords, and number two, having a poor landing page. Because spot on, you're paying to get the clicks,
and then
you sit into this page that doesn't convert.
That doesn't convert.
Well, what was the point? Whereas just by adjusting that landing page and getting better conversion, we find campaigns go from a non-profitable, poor return on investment to suddenly being a very positive return. Just by changing the landing page.
Just because somebody clicks on your ad, it's not an automatic, right, they're going to buy off you.
No,
that'd be great.
You've really got to assume that when they get there, you've still
give them an experience.
Exactly.
We'll move on, because I think this is leading into the omnichannel. There's a lot of questions about omnichannel. So point 6 out of 7 is embracing omnichannel marketing. Now, the older thinking, I mean, when I studied marketing in university, it was very like pick a channel and stick with it and throw everything at it. And today, it's evolved too much. There's too many channels. There's too many social media platforms where people are like, look at your phones. Like if everyone just looks at their phones and they can see, do you hesitate between opening Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google? Like you just look at everything, even Amazon, eBay, they're all channels. And so I find that today, the best form of marketing is one where you not just spread your message to the key choices that, like Kristin said, it's not just everything. It's picking a wide variety of channels and then catering your message to each one is where I find I get the best results for myself and my clients. And it's the post-COVID era is now more than ever is a chance for you to embrace it and say, okay, how can we use Instagram? I know I'm too afraid to try TikTok right now, but there's there's a lot of
I can't wait for that.
Perfect for
just having a dance and see. But there's a lot of like brands that are embracing TikTok and seeing great results. There's a lot of brands that are like, I love LinkedIn. And so I'm using that quite actively. But, there's a lot of, Instagram stories, Snapchat, all those kind of, we talked about Google My Business. Let's weigh in. What do people think about omnichannel?
I'd agree. Look, omnichannel to me doesn't mean every channel.
Yeah, I agree.
It means it's effectively adopting a multi-channel approach, choosing the ones that are relative to your business, right? But as importantly, they're relative to your business because they're relative to your audience, okay? And then having a consistency of messaging across those so that when somebody touches your business, doesn't matter how they enter, they have that consistency. Now, what you can do is have a layered approach within that and say, look, within Facebook, we adopt this approach to the way that we tell our story, and we adopt this tone. It is consistent with the way that we market in LinkedIn, but our LinkedIn is just a little bit more formal and it's a bit more directed. So you can have different tones and you can have different approaches, but as long as there's a consistency and those customers or that audience can actually identify with you. So when you're choosing the channels, think about the audience. Don't lose sight of the audience and just say, well, it's my business, I'm just going to put it out there. You've really got to think about who am I trying to target? Are they there? Why are they there? How do they like to be spoken to?
And
that's your
podcasting. Podcasting was what, Arielle mentioned it before. Podcasting is a huge,
it's so intimate, isn't it?
Yes.
It's amazingly intimate for a connection with your client.
Because I was already writing a lot of content and producing a lot of content, and I thought people want to listen on the go. And so it's a really, really great opportunity. If any brand is not ready for podcasting, just give it a go. Because I was already writing blogs and I was just voicing them. And it was getting like over 100 listens a day from nothing. As in it started there and then it was going up from there. And so for me, I was like, I'm already writing the blogs. I might as well put them into audio form as well. So that's another opportunity to embrace omni-channel. Sorry, I'm still that.
No. I think, but like Kristin said, don't get overwhelmed. You don't want to get overwhelmed by all these channels either, because you just listed, there's so many different social media platforms, so many different business pages, so many different avenues you can go about. And that's where, it all ties together. It's about that marketing strategy and that brand identity of who are we, who is our audience, where can we reach them the best, and then how do we reach them within those channels. But if you get a good agency and you're creating that content, it's about them being able to know how audience react to content based on those platforms, and they can infuse the brand and make sure it feels and acts like the brand on all of them while still being uniquely made for that platform. And that doesn't need to be a ton of money, because if you think about it ahead time, you can make sure you're creating that content with that vision in mind. And that's really better if you can than trying to fit one video that was mainly made for YouTube all of a sudden on Instagram and TikTok and all these things, or on LinkedIn. And it just does not, it can really turn your customers off if it feels like you're just putting general messaging out there. So even though it's exciting that there's all these platforms, and I get so excited to tell my clients about all these platforms and go around these approach, we're very careful, and we do a lot of strategy around where are their audience. If you're going to pay that money and you're going to create this, we want people
you
to
wanna
see
know.
it, and they want,
that's what it
and you
is.
want them to connect with it.
Exposure.
Yeah. So take the time to figure out which ones are best for you.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that's one of the critical questions and considerations for most businesses. You got to think about kind of two aspects of your business in terms of your size and what you have the resources available to do, as well as the marketing funnel. And so when you look at what channel you then want to implement, like the way we sort of approach things, we look at it kind of on that sort of 80-20 principle. You know, what are the channels that we're going to get 80% of the result with 20% of the effort?
Yeah.
You know, because if you went into each individual channel and you became a master and did, you know, Twitter or Facebook or Google Ads, and you went 100% into it and spent all your time and effort and money in that one channel, yeah, you could do extraordinarily well. But how much wastage happens, because to get that last little bit out of each channel requires so much more extra effort. Whereas if we just focus on doing what, you know, so that was it Tim Ferriss has that minimum sort of threshold that he puts in there in terms of creating that, doing just enough to get an awesome result out of it, and that's it, and then move on, and well, not move on, but embrace other channels and bring those into the mix. And the core decision really is to think about the what we always start with is look at the customer journey and think about where you want to start talking to them, and focus on the areas when you think about, okay, so we all go through that whole process, right? So we have, you know, problem, solution, consideration, decision, right? And so we think about, well, where do we start advertising? How do we market to people? Don't start up in the awareness stage, first off. If you're not visible to people at the consideration phase, when they're sort of looking for exactly your kind of service, so if they're doing a search for a copywriter and you're not visible there, you know, there's no point doing all this other stuff here. That's going to cost you a lot of time, effort, and money to get to people. Whereas at the consideration decision stage, they already know what they're looking for. You just need to be in front of them.
Yeah.
So that's where we sort of encourage a lot of businesses to start there, start at that end, and sort of make sure your marketing activities are working really well for you there, and then start to go a bit further up in that the awareness phase. So if you look at your different channels, focus on the ones that do a whole lot of different ones, not just one, not just you know, 2 or 3 different channels. Look at a whole range, focus on that 80-20 where you get the best results, and do a lot of them.
I'm just mindful of the time. We've got 8 minutes left. So I would
wow.
Did you want to pick up on, I think that's
a really good question. So the question is, being a small one-woman business, is there one channel you would recommend I focus on? So I address this a lot in my marketing classes with GA, and a lot of people say, well, hold on, Chris, you keep saying omni-channel, but like, oh my God, I only have a certain amount of hours. Right, and I was there. I was there. Now I've got a team, thank God. Because people go, oh my gosh, how are you pumping out so much content? But my suggestion to you is start small. Like Arielle said, don't get overwhelmed. I always say in my classes is start small, pick like Kristin said, is that pick a channel where you are going to get the most uptake and it's most consistent with your brand, i.e. usually Facebook, like people who are quite constant on Facebook, or if you're maybe a service business, maybe LinkedIn. And you start there and you grow there and you start to get a handle on it. And then, as Mike said, is then apply the 80-20 rule, where you say, okay, we've got a good, comfortable spot in Facebook. It's done. We're not 100% there, but it's getting some traction. Now, what would be the next channel? And the next obvious, people often move to, say, Instagram. Is the next evolution there, or Google Plus is Google My Business. Google My Business is a really good place to start as well for if you're a local based business, especially. And so that's how I would approach. Does anyone have a different?
Oh no, look, I tend to agree. I mean, like a business with one person in it, you've got so many demands coming on you, so you can only spend so much time doing your own promotion. I think, as you said, focus on where your audience is, and basically the audience in the way that audience likes to communicate with you, because your audience might be on a number of different platforms, but focus on how they communicate with you. But have a very clear plan at the outset as to how you're going to build it, and set your objectives. So, because if you just start with Facebook, for example, and it starts to work and work well, you will quickly fall into the mindset of, I'm going to stay with Facebook.
Facebook's my channel.
And that is completely the incorrect approach. You must get more omni-channel, because people will look at you from different angles. And if they see that you're active on one and completely anonymous on others, From a branding perspective, you'll lose immediately. You'll lose the trust, and then they will just start to question whether you're a real business.
Yeah, actually,
that's the unfortunate thing. That's the world we live in now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that that also doesn't mean you have to be a global conglomerate today.
And I think
you can build.
Yeah.
And I think if you're feeling overwhelmed with you're saying, oh, I still don't really know which platform is mine. The best thing to do is just look at what other brands in your space are doing. I mean, that's what a lot of us agencies do. You come to us, what's the first thing our team is doing? We're going to look at all your competitors. What are they doing in their space? What are they doing with their marketing? Which platforms are they getting the most activity and engagement on? And you can take all that research and all the years that they've built that and decide, okay, that product's like mine, they're working really well. It seems like a lot of other products like mine are working really well on Instagram. So I'm going to start with Instagram and then move to Facebook or whatnot. So that's a really good place to start if you don't know where to select that platform.
Yeah, and just make sure make sure you differentiate as you do it. So don't just adopt their story. You know, you've got to still explain why it is you're different and what value you add.
Of course,
but I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good.
It's really good.
And a tip for the person who asked that question, and for everyone who's that one person band, get all your handles anyway. Like all your if your business name, go grab even if you're not going to use it, grab Instagram, grab all the platforms, so that if you do expand there, no one's squatting on it.
Yes.
That's a really annoying. Like you don't want to have your proper name on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then you try to go Instagram, you have to have the underscroll. Or just if you're that, just get them all and then put them on holds.
Yep.
And just, do you want all right to move
on?
on?
That's good.
So the last tip we want to say is reach out for professional assistance. And this is one thing that I have found a lot of people, it is a confusing time, right? And we're not going to deny this. The post-COVID era is dare I say, the uncharted territory. That's another one. People in uncharted territory, and that it's unprecedented.
Unprecedented times,
right? So that's a perfect word, right? And so that it is. Let's not deny it, right? And so don't feel like you can't reach out to, like Mike said before, that you're tax specialists, you've got marketing people. Don't feel like, okay, we have to climb our way out of this and guess our way through. There's a lot of businesses out there that are consultants, providers, assistants, and they can provide you with the guidance, and there's options out there. So don't feel like, oh, I've got to do it because that's the way I've got to do it. You know, reach out. It's not weakness, it's strength to reach out for assistance.
And I think, I think the key with that also is that there's many businesses out there that can help you regardless of the size of your business.
Yes, so, actually, that's good point.
There's a very different copywriting agency that, for example, that writes for a one-man band organisation versus a copywriting agency that works for a global business. So, and those businesses are completely tiered and targeted to those different sites. So when we say reach out, we're saying, look, there are a lot of agencies, studios, organisations, and there's loads of options for you at your price point. To fit your budget. Yeah.
I think also, I mean, one of shameless plug for us. We did. We've got on that website a free guide. On the post-COVID. We wrote a book on marketing post-COVID, and so putting an action list together and stuff. So there's quite a few of those around too. So depending on where the business is at, if it's only a very small business, still kind of finding their feet and a bit resource constrained, then there's plenty of free resources out there.
There's loads out there.
Free resources.
And then as the business sort of, if they're slightly getting to mid-tier, larger businesses and stuff, then absolutely there's plenty of different service providers out there who know what they're doing, can help.
I mean, I was going to say, unfortunate for us, great for you. A lot of us do a lot of that strategy and initial chats right up front. You can reach out, and we're here to help you and to work out, does that budget work out with our business? Can we target, can we create a full strategy around your offerings? And you can find that so that there is someone for everyone.
There absolutely
if you need help, if you're that one woman business or a large corporation, there are businesses that can help you with your strategy plan to make sure it's aligned.
Don't be
so we'll recap the 7 and we'll try and take a few questions. So I know we're really close to time. So 1 is revisit and refresh your marketing plan. 2 is keep your audience informed. Number 3, assess the viability of your COVID adaptations. Number 4 is rebalance your marketing approach. Number 5 is build marketing assets. 6 is embrace omnichannel marketing. And 7, reach out for professional assistance. So let's take a question. Oh my gosh, how will AI affect digital marketing? That is another 3-hour talk.
Yeah. That's the topic of the next. Yeah.
A lot. We can probably maybe speak to GA and do a session on that. AI is absolutely huge. I work with a lot of companies doing AI for retail, doing AI for marketing, and I'm even writing AI scripts. So that's a huge topic.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the short answer is a lot. AI is going to change a lot of different things. It hasn't slowed down because of COVID. It's actually one of those things that has been tinkering away. Does anyone want to add before? I know we'll move on because that's a big topic and we're out of time.
No, I think it's going to make the way that we market more and more targeted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
personalization.
Personalization. A lot, I think. Is
Sorry, I've heard asked that question. I don't mean to skip over it. It's just, that's a big one.
Yes.
How can you effectively target a niche market when you don't have access to behavioral data through digital channels? Ooh. Okay.
I think this really harks back. So what that says to me is that you may not have the resources to really access. And I think it harks back to what Arielle was saying before. You really need to look at those that you believe are doing it well in your market. They're in your competitor space, and review what they're doing, review what you think is working for them, and then try and change that into your brand.
Yeah.
And your approach and your value add. Yeah.
I think the approach I would take is get to know your customer.
Yeah.
So just get out there, get on the phone. If you look at who your potential niche, customer is, who you believe would be the ideal customer for your product or service, is get out there and find that person and have a chat and find out more about, what it is, what's of value to them, what do they like, not like about what you've got, and just do a bit of, grassroots kind of just hit the street kind of
one-on-one research.
I mean, there's plenty of different amazing tools out there that can give you all this sort of quantitative data and stuff, but when they talk about qualitative, it's just get on the phone, have a chat to someone, or find someone in your network who kind of fits the bill, and just sit down and ask them what's going on. And that's often like the best part of marketing is when you really understand your customer and they get a sense that you understand them. That's where it really is easy, one, to connect, and two, to make a sale, because you know them. You know what they want, you know what they need, and you know how your product does that for them. That's the essence of good marketing.
That's a good one.
Really good question up here. Sorry, guys. I'm mindful of time. I know, Cleo, if you're still on there from GA, do you want us to stop, or do you want us to keep asking questions? I mean, I'm just, what we'll do is we will say goodbye to everyone who needs to go. And I think we'll answer one or two more questions. Is that all right? So for everyone who needs to go, thank you very much for joining us. We will be sending out the slides, and this presentation, as Claire said, will be recorded. So just to sign off, my name is Chris Melotti from Melotti Media, Message Marketing Copywriting.
Arielle Bowers from 2 Giraffes, video production, animation, and podcast studio.
Kristin Hancock from Swatch, branding and design.
Mike Sandys, Oddball Marketing, action-oriented marketing.
Thank you. And so thank you for everyone. We'll just do a few more questions. There's a really good one that just came in. How can we convince management that marketing is just as important in tough times as where consumer confidence is low? That's a really big question.
You know what?
And it's a good one.
Yeah. Harvard Review actually did a whole study on the last 3 recessions that have happened, and they saw how were brands doing that kept marketing and made it a key focus, and which ones hid under their shells and what happened. And it was proven through the 3 different recessions that the ones who kept their marketing going had higher sales, had a higher engagement, not only during but after the recession hit. So there is evidence out there, and you could actually go out there and find that evidence and utilize that to put this plan forward. to your boss.
And like I can personal experience.
Yeah.
I know, like I since February, I saw the COVID period coming, and I was really active in my marketing. You know, like I was rebranding, and I personally have experienced, like I've been seeing on channels where people are advertising for work, a lot of out of work copywriters, and here's me having work that I can't keep up with, right?
Yeah.
And it's not meant to sound like anything bad. I mean that it just goes to show that being proactive and using your marketing and getting out there during these kind of periods, it truly does work.
Yeah.
And it was
Absolutely.
really connecting with customers. And what ended up happening is because everyone did contract, my marketing was then even louder.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I stole all that like market share because all my competitors retracted.
What is it, like quieter the world, the louder your voice?
Yeah.
Essentially, if they're hiding in, you're just automatically getting.
I knew someone was going to go. But like in Kristin, Mike, like about like how you know where you know justifying your marketing spend during tough times.
I think, well, I mean, the way we sort of approach things, I get my team to look at things within our business if they're trying to convince me of something. And so,
you're the boss, right?
And we often have we had very rigorous debates about what we should or shouldn't be doing. Is putting a simple business case together. Say, okay, well, you know, why should we be doing this? What's the potential, you know, benefits out of it? What's the positives that can come out of this? What's the investments? What's the risk? Because if you look at it and you say, well, okay, it's, you know, you're picking activities that could be lower investment, lower amounts of work in it, very minimal risks, but potential for massive upside. You know, manager, hopefully the manager is going to look at that and go, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Let's have a go at this. Often where we see people kind of struggling to get others to do stuff is they're just not putting forward a case that makes sense.
That's a good one.
And so they're thinking one thing, the other person's thinking another. You know, the manager's got lots of other things that they're thinking about. Whereas if you can articulate it in a good way, looking at that, you know, the benefits versus the cost and the risk, makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's enough data out there now, particularly with your marketing, and we've been talking a lot about digital marketing in this panel today. There's enough data out there for you to actually put up a reasonable business case to say this is, by this spend, this is what we expect to get in terms of conversions. And to see what value was in that. But also part of your business case, I think, must have the what if. What if we don't do this? What if we actually do become silent? Then what actions do you think our competitors might take if they see us withdraw from the market? And I think that comes back to them. If they step into your space, it's extremely hard to get your position back. Rather than to just.
That's it. And that's why you can't fall silent during this.
Exactly. Because as we said, you know, your audience is going to be looking around in this period. So if you are silent, they will find someone who's going to tell them what they want to hear. And give them the answer that they want.
I'm just looking, there's a question coming in. What are some tips? Sorry, just trying different types. I'm sorry. Example of multi-level storytelling. This one's a definition issue because it could mean so many different things.
Yes.
I'm assuming the question means like content along the let's say call the flywheel, the process, the funnel. I'm assuming that's what the question asker means. So like I think Mike, you're probably best to talk about this because you sort of mentioned that you have to have content along the customer journey. I'm assuming that's what the question asker meant with multi-level.
Yep. I mean, if I think about how that could work you look at through the journey, and your messaging and communication has to change. So you think about the storytelling process. You think about someone who's maybe problem aware, but not quite aware of a solution to their problem. They just know that they've got this niggling problem. That's where you can use different channels with a great story that kind of attracts their attention to, hey, we get that. And I think in a lot of the copywriting you do, Chris, you really hone in on that pain point. And making it easy for people to identify. I've got that problem.
What's the pain point? Tell me the pain point so we can solve it.
You know me, that sort of stuff that you realize what they're going through. And then that messaging and storytelling changes as you kind of go, we get that. We understand what the problems are. And so then here's the solution. And so you sort of shift that storytelling and communication through that buyer journey. But then that's when you tie in all the different medium.
Channel.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
you look at things like, video, for instance, if you use video at those different stages, like if we've got a landing page that we're sending Google Ads to, I'm not talking to them about problem aware sort of stuff because they know they're doing a search for that.
They know their problem.
Yeah, what I'm doing on the landing page is making sure I've got a video that tells a story about how we solve that problem so well for a client, and how this product is absolutely amazing at doing that. And here's a bunch of testimonials to verify that it does, so that it builds that trust.
Absolutely.
And then they go, yeah, cool. I'm like, and so if you think about this whole, story that you're sort of communicating and in different channels and in different ways through that buying journey, if you can tie those all together, wow, you've got a pretty, pretty impressive marketing strategy.
There's some good models out there, like the ones that say like awareness, and here's all the content you create around awareness. And then the next stage, they're looking to be a customer, convert, and all these kind of points. As long as you're creating content clouds around those areas, it does do that multi-level storytelling. Oh, okay. We've been asked to shut up.
They've talked about
so thank you everyone for joining us. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in and sort of wind everything up from GA, but thank you so much for your time tonight. We hope you enjoyed it. We will be doing more of these panels going forward with a few different topics and helping them. And so we will share the slides. You've got our details from the slides. Please reach out if you have any more questions, or we're active on LinkedIn. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for that amazing event. I'd just like to say thank you again to Kristin, Mike, and Arielle for sharing your insights to today's topic. And thank you to Chris for moderating today's event. I'll just quickly share my screen again for that feedback survey. Please do, if you really enjoyed it like I did, please do fill out the survey link. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And just a note, this session was recorded, so you will receive the slides and the session recording within 7 days after today. And again, if you do have any questions, feel free to send us an email at sydney@ga.co. I'll just give you one more minute to get that link down. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone attending tonight's event. We hope that you can join us at another event. Go head to our website. We have so many events coming up. They're all there. But thank you so much, guys. Have a good evening. Bye.